I'm the PIO for the NPS. You are the one.
Thank you, man.
We also have the individual person from Mitigation. Yeah, she can see I'd rather hear it, honestly. I'm gonna sit by.
Hey, there's Millie back there.
I think there's some, yeah, some more. Or whoever needs this.
Oh, there we go. So we just wanted to make sure the IO stuff was covered.
You want to?
Please, do we need a microphone too?
Oh, thank you. I was like, you were helping me, but I didn't know where you went. Well, we don't have enough seats, so I know. Is someone sitting here?
Sure, you can sit there if you want to.
So, we wanted to what's that? Turn around.
We can have but we can definitely come. You can have the space. We're gonna move her. We're gonna move her over. You guys stay.
Can we stay out of the way here? I am going to run to the
Oh, okay.
Probably. Well, I think you're probably the best spot, but I don't want to inconvenience somebody else.
I don't know how you consider today because every time you see from every I don't know if Giovanna, I think Giovanna said that Giovanna was not of government, so told the plumbing information officer of the pressure item that I wasn't going to participate. But the same floor,
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I apologize for being a little bit loud, but I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to hear what I have to say, and to more importantly, to hear what the representatives up here at our panel have to say. My name is Chuck Anderson. I'm the city manager here in Treasure Island, and I want to welcome you and thank you for being here this evening. The city of Treasure Island is hosting this town hall because we need to get information out to our residents, and we need to answer the questions and provide the information that our residents are looking for. We have representatives from FEMA, the state of Florida, and the county, who is represented from Haggerty Consulting, and also city staff here to provide answers to your questions. I would like to just go over the agenda, and what will take a few minutes is that we have representatives from a number of facilities and services within FEMA. We're going to have individuals introduce themselves. The majority of them are up here in the panels, but there are a few in the audience. And this way you will know the services that they represent and who they are in case you have any follow-on questions later. They're going to do an overview of their programs, a quick one so you understand who they are and the services that they do provide. After we go through that, we're going to have a question and answer session from the community. The community was asked to provide the questions on your way in, and they have been collected on index cards. And those index cards will be distributed, and the questions will be read, and then the answers will be provided. What I would ask for is your cooperation. There's a good number of people within the room here tonight, and the information we want to get out, if the questions weren't being asked, they wouldn't be important. And we want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to get the answers they seek. So I ask for your cooperation and your mutual respect. I would ask that if individuals are speaking, you allow them to finish speaking, and please do not interrupt them. I would ask that we have that respect, and also please do not disrupt the meeting as it's ongoing. The overlapping end goal is to provide you answers and information. The meeting is currently scheduled from 5 until 7:30, and at the conclusion of the meeting, we will have individuals who will remain behind from these agencies to answer any other questions you might have. So again, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy days to come here, but it's an important informational briefing that we're going to be able to provide. If I
You fix the sound system.
I'm sorry,
Carefully.
can people in the back hear me, or do I need to hold the microphone closer? Okay, so anybody who comes after me, please hold the microphone closer. And thank you, sir, appreciate that.
Welcome.
If I could start at the table over here.
Good afternoon. My name is Millie Diaz. I represent FEMA, and I am with the Individual and Household Program. And I'll be giving you an overview of the program. Specifically for my program, probably the questions you might have are really specific to you. And if that is the case, I will stay until the end to take those individually, as this room is really big and there's a lot of personal information that you might have, and I have to ask, like your social security numbers and your registration number, and I will want to make that private and obviously make sure that that information is not shared in, out of privacy. So again, Millie Diaz, Individual and Household Programs.
Hello, my name is Deborah Parker. I'm with Hazard Mitigation with the National Flood Insurance Program with FEMA. I will be talking to you today about hazard mitigation. I will go into detail about some of the products that we have available for you. And I'll be supporting these other partners of mine from other departments and sharing information as well.
Hi, my name is Molly Kaput, and I'm here with FEMA, and I work in the floodplain management group. Tammy Hansen will stay also with me to answer questions. She's also FEMA floodplain management.
Hello, everyone. I'm Linda Voss with the Office of Floodplain Management for the state of Florida, of the Florida Division of Emergency Management. I can field any questions you have, but I'm here primarily to discuss substantial damage and what everybody refers to as the FEMA 50% rule. We can go into more detail what that really means to homeowners. And, sorry. Oh, it's not, I'm sorry, it's not supposed to be on my table. That's our table.
Good evening, I'm Catherine Youngkin with the City of Treasure Island, with the Community Development Department. So that covers our building, planning, zoning, codes, and floodplain.
And I'm Mary Ellen Edwards, I'm the Assistant Community Development Director.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shirley Vanetti with Heritage Consulting. I'm supporting the county and I work with Cape Coral and Lee County for hurricane.
I'm Bob Edwards. I'm also with Mitigation Consulting and also I work with the city of Cape Coral. I think that's all of the individuals who needed to introduce themselves, except for the corner over here. I call myself.
Thanks, sir. I'm Rick Morales. I'm Quality Information Officer with the SDA. You all need to remember that we are not only for businesses, but also for homeowners, renters, and nonprofits. And also, we are going to stay until the end of the activity. So we are going to answer all the questions, and I have outreach material. All the people that haven't applied or apply and didn't complete the procedures, please do the procedures. I always encourage that. So yeah, I hope that this is going to be a good meeting.
Good evening, my name is Kimberly Duro. I'm a female voluntary agency liaison. I'm also here with my colleague,
Kathleen Armstrong.
I'm Kathleen Armstrong. We coordinate with voluntary agencies and partner local and state, federal resources and with those voluntary agency resources to try to help those who can't recover on their own, as well as support our colleagues here with individual assistance types of questions, and we try to meet needs across the board. We're glad to answer any questions you may have as we go.
Thank you for providing those introductions. I'm waiting right now. We're going to have the questions that were submitted previously brought in, and we can start the panel discussion. Wow. So did everybody register to vote? Please make sure you get out and vote. It's important. And does everybody know where their polling places are, or their places at the vote? Thank you, Jason. So what I'd like us to do is to start over in the corner here. If you could read the question and then provide the response.
Do you want me to go first with an overview of what the program is, and then we'll do the question? Will that be easier?
Yes, if you could provide a short overview.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't mean to scare you. Sorry. I'm not gonna get up so I can read. I have everything in writing so I can give you the information as is. So I don't miss anything. I have a few talking points. So the FEMA individual assistance for you guys are unfortunately for 3 disasters. The first one is Debbie, the second one is Helene, and the third one for Milton. If you have not registered with FEMA, the first thing that you have to do is register. There's a few ways that you can register. The first one is going into disasterassistance.gov. You can call the 800 number, which is 800-621-3362, or you can go to one of the FEMA recovery centers that are around the area. If I'm not mistaken, the closest one here is in Pinellas County, and it's right now until November the 1st at the Botanical Garden, okay? So that's the first thing that you have to do. If you haven't registered with FEMA and you have any damages, whether you are an owner or a renter, you must file with FEMA. For those that have insurance in your property or your personal property too, you can still register with FEMA, but you need to keep in mind that your case will be on hold until you send us either a denial letter or the letter that says, this is what we covered, and here you go, so we can see what your insurance didn't cover and see what can we pay at that point, all right? So there's a few things that we have, and it's the famous $770 or $750. $750 are for those disasters that happened before October the 1st. $770 is for Milton that happened after October the 1st. That is government number that we give, and it depends on the budget for that year. That is what changes. So the ones that happened until September the 30th is last year fiscal year, and then Milton is. So what is that $770 for? That is for serious need assistance, okay? Might be used, but it will be limited to fuel, transportation, water, food, or any other emergency needs items. When expedited, the serious need assistance approved might be given to survivors prior to an inspection. So for Helene, people are probably getting them after inspection. For Milton, in some areas, it's prior to inspection. The other thing is displacement assistance. What is displacement assistance? It provides eligible survivors who can't return to their homes with funds to help them with immediate housing options of your choice, such as staying with family. Okay? Applicants with disaster cost temporary housing needs that continue to be displaced, once that assistance is dispersed, you guys can continue to request rental assistance, but you need to have the funds for displacement assistance being dispersed first. Okay? So that is the famous $770 and the $2,600 for displacement. What is housing assistance? Housing assistance under FEMA has a top of $43,600. It offers to repair and rental assistance for longer term housing needs. Keep in mind that our home repair assistance focuses on essential repairs to make your house safe and functional. So if you have other things that don't make your house functional and safe, it's considered luxury. So that's why we have a top, okay? Things like patio screen, fences, deck are not covered by FEMA, okay? However, we can assist you with critical structure items like water wells, septic tanks, furnaces, HVAC systems, private roads and bridges, and even this year, ADA features like paved path, ramps, grab bars for applicants who have those needs, okay? The other need assistance program under FEMA too, and under the individual and household programs, is for personal property. So those things like transportation, if your primary vehicle got damaged, we can cover up to certain amount, whether the vehicle is a total or just need repairs. We're just gonna need information from your person, your mechanic, saying your car can be repaired, this is the amount, or your car is a total loss, and FEMA will send you what that is. We also have disaster-related funeral and medical expenses. dental, childcare, moving and storage, and miscellaneous items like generators and chainsaw. Keep in mind also that generators must be a medical need at that point. All right? Let's talk about inspectors real quick. Usually you fill out the application and within 7 to 10 days, which is not the case, I want to stress that we said 7 to 10 days, but the reality is it's taking a little bit longer. But we send an inspector, and the inspector look at the property, and then they make the decision of what the damages are, and based on the damages that the inspectors see, that is what the amount of money that you might get. Keep in mind that if you're insured, you need to go to your insurance first for both personal property and structure. We have call-out efforts. FEMA in our main office is also calling you guys to see what, to let you know this is the documents that we need in order to process your case. So we're asking you, if you guys receive a phone call and you don't recognize the number, just remember it could be one of us trying to let you know that we need something from you. If you decide not to pick up the phone, at least listen to the message, because we are leaving messages, and call us back if we leave a message to call you back. Again, it's probably to ask you to provide some information in order for us to keep moving your case. All the decisions you can appeal. You have 60 days from the letter of decision to appeal everything, including the $770. Okay? If you don't receive them and you don't agree with any of our decisions, you can always appeal that. And I'm gonna go over, this is the overview. I'm gonna go over to Ms. Debbie here so I can read the questions and then I can provide an answer.
Okay, while they're chatting, I'll go ahead and get started. I'm here to talk to you today about mitigation. Mitigation is something that we all should be familiar with. And what we say at FEMA when it comes to mitigation is that you need to remember that you need to be practicing it before, during, and after an event. Of course, it appears the last few years we've been impacted frequently on the coast. So we need to be aware of the fact that we need to prepare before it comes. What I do in mitigation is I work with individuals, providing them guidance and resources on how to build back safer and stronger. We attend community education outreach meetings. We get with individuals to tell you how to go ahead and build back stronger, as I stated, but not only that, how to protect your property from further damage. When you go to our disaster recovery centers, we have information for you, and many of you probably have already been to disaster recovery centers. Mainly what we're talking about is like your windows. If your windows are damaged and you have to replace them, and it's required by permit or whomever, within your building department, they will instruct you the type of windows you have to put in. You want to make sure you're getting the permits, the proper information about the permits. If you have to repair your roof, you want to make sure you consult with your building department, floodplain administrator, make sure that you're following all guidelines there. This is the type of information that we can bring to you and make sure that you have available at any time. Many of you had roof damage, I'm sure, and one of the partners that we have that are assisting people is called the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, called Operation Blue Roof. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but they are here and have extended the opportunity to help you by putting a blue tarp over your roof to protect you from water damage, the interior portion of your home. This is a free program, and I will give you the phone number for them. That telephone number is 888-766-3258. Once you contact them either by email or telephone, they will make an appointment with you to get out and go ahead and put a roof on you, a blue tarp on for you. Their website is blueroof.gov. I'm sorry, it's blueroof.gov. The next thing I want to talk to you about is mitigation has several programs. One is community education outreach. The other is floodplain management and insurance. The other is the grant program. And the other is our mapping program. All of this information is available for you out on our website. If you go to FEMA.gov, and in the search window, you pretty much put whatever topic it is you'd like to find information about. For instance, if your property has been substantially damaged, if you'll put that in that search window, it would give you guidance on where to go to get information on the property and how to handle that. In addition to that, we have a telephone number for any questions regarding construction, repair, insurance. Whether your property is in a special flood hazard area, they can look it up and give you information about the maps. That telephone number I'm going to share with you right now as well. It is 877-336-2627. Now, we also have a standalone map site, but if you call them, they can answer all of those questions for you. Insurance, construction, mapping, and things like that. You can go directly to the site, and the site address is FEMA-FMIX. That's F like Frank, M like Mother, I like India, X like X-ray, at FEMA.gov. Okay? Now, the next thing I'd like to talk to you about is I don't know how many of you have flood insurance, but it's very important that you realize or pay attention to what we're seeing right now. We're all been exposed to events, and the events were a couple of things: flooding and wind. Most of us that have a mortgage on our home carry flood insurance. I too am a victim of or survivor of Hurricane Milton. I wasn't impacted from Helene, but I was impacted from Milton. The thing that you have to remember is you have to protect your exposure. It's ultimately your responsibility. So when it comes to flood, understand that most homeowner policies and renters policies do not cover damage from flood. Flood is rising water, okay, 2 or more properties or 2 or more acres. So remember that, so that you won't be in a situation that you don't have coverage. So the National Flood Insurance Program, we do offer a flood insurance policy for homeowners, businesses, renters, and you can purchase that policy from us directly or through one of our Write Your Own agent on our website called floodsmart.gov. If you go there, we have a world of information for you regarding why need flood insurance, how to purchase a flood insurance policy, looking up your maps, things like that. That's set up specifically to provide you information. Okay? Now, remember that if it rains, it can flood. And it doesn't matter whether you're in a special flood hazard area or not. If you look at these effects of the flooding this year in different parts of the world, like Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, many of those places were not, many of those flooding events and the people that were impacted were not in a special flood hazard area. So please, please remember that. Make sure you protect your exposure. 2 things. The flood policy has building coverage and contents coverage. You can purchase them together, the homeowner, or separately. We encourage you to purchase both of them because you actually own both of them. Renters, you can only purchase coverage for contents. That's the stuff you take into your actual dwelling. So you got to make sure you do that. Other than that, I just want you to know it takes 30 days for a policy to bind, one of our flood policies. It doesn't matter whether there's a storm out there or not. It's not like homeowners. I think that's pretty much it, just to tell you that it's a stress reliever to know that you have a policy of your own to protect your exposure. Okay? Thank you.
So, I'd like to put FEMA floodplain management again. I will tell you, FEMA's floodplain management role in disasters like this is to come out with the state and support the communities through their process. So all regulations are local, they've been adopted and they are enforced at the local level. So we're here to help these folks with their floodplain management, administration, and enforcement. So that's our role post-disaster. I have a couple general floodplain management questions, but I'm gonna do a lot of the specific ones to Treasure Island questions related to rebuilding to them. I'm here to support them, but they have their rules that they're gonna answer. So, I'm gonna give, I have a couple that I think are in general. One, will the amount I receive for my flood insurance payout affect the calculation for the FEMA 50% rule? No, it won't affect that. They're gonna make assessments regardless of the amount of money you receive. In addition, flood insurance only covers flood. And I know this was a flood event for Helene and a wind event for Milton, so you might have multiple damages to your structure that are not covered by flood. You have to look at the damages to the whole structure from any source. So it's not just your flood insurance payout. I think I'm interpreting this question one way. If I'm wrong, you can let me know. But how does FEMA justify the 50% rule? The reason that it was adopted when the NFIP started was that if you were going to make an investment in your home, or if you were damaged and needed to repair the investment in your home, you wanted to protect it from future loss. So the rule was set at 50% back in the late 60s, early 70s, and it's been on the books since then. So the goal is, if you're going to invest money in your property, protect it against future loss.
I asked that question, there's more to it.
I don't understand the multiple.
It said that, when I read your policy, it said multiple events. We haven't had a multiple event in Treasure Island in years. This area hasn't been hit.
So the FEMA minimum standards, and again, they're locally adopted standards, the very minimum that communities have to adopt is a one-time 50% loss, is what's in our minimum standards. There are higher standards that can count the loss or improvement over time, but the FEMA minimums are 50%. So it doesn't talk about multiple at the minimum. Does that make sense? Okay. And then a FEMA inspector came to my house, stated I would receive something within 10 days. That is individual assistance. There are no FEMA inspectors. The second part is this an SD assessment? This is not an SD assessment. FEMA is only doing inspections for individual assistance. You're not involved in a substantial damage assessment project. So that's the answer to that question. And that's all I have.
I just want to go over one of the questions just to add to it. I think the one that the one for multiple losses. Are you saying what are they going to do if you can't decide, what happened to Helene compared to what happened to Milton, things like that? No. Yeah. Okay. No.
Your question, just making sure.
No, I was talking about, the way I read your policy was multiple events, and there's never been one in Treasure Island like this.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I think those are ours.
Can I ask a clarification of the first question you asked? The question about insurance is, let's say your 50% is $100,000, and your insurance comes in, whether it's one or multiple, at $120. Are those tied together? So if your 50% valuation of your dwelling is $100,000, and your insurance comes back at $120, not your substantial damage report, your insurance comes back at $120.
The adjusters do not make substantial damage to their insurance.
And there's no tying of those two together.
The local community can request access to claims information in order for them to administer their program. So they can request access to that information. So they can request access. I'm not saying though that the adjusters do not make substantial damage information to your local community.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Do you want Ivy to answer their?
Have them have one. All right. So some of the questions for individual assistance are, what benefits for the renters is FEMA given? For renters, we obviously pay for personal property because the structure belongs to someone else. So if you're renting, and so the structure of the house belongs to the landlord. So we pay for the contents of your stuff, any clothing, personal property, depending how many people lives in the house, we paid for, beds, and again, personal property for renters. The structure belongs to whomever that structure, the owner is. Will FEMA pay for loss of home value if city will not allow permits to put a home back together?
Yeah, that was my question. Well, so, we'll talk about it. That's.
Expected time for payments to homeowners. So right now, it's gonna be depending in a few things. It depends on inspection. Once the inspection is done, if there's anything that needs to be manually worked, and it depends from someone to go in your case and look at it, and there's any information that we need from you, so if you have to upload any kind of information into the FEMA app, or if you go to a DRC and give us some documents that need to be uploaded for us to make a decision, just for us to see those in your file is taking 2 weeks. And after that, we have to have our caseworkers look at the case and manually work on it. So we're gonna be talking about, 2 to 4 weeks minimum, okay? How do I reach FEMA to show rejection letter from my insurance? So you have different ways. If you receive a settlement or a denial letter, and if you have the FEMA app, you can always upload that letter through the FEMA app. You can fax it, or, and the fax number, I have it here. Our fax number is 1-800-827-8112. Or you can always visit one of the disaster recovery centers, and they will be more than happy to upload that into your file. Just keep in mind that it's going to take a while those documents actually show in your file. If your insurance doesn't cover all the rebuild, can you get money from FEMA to help? That's why we asked you for the settlement. It's important that if you have insurance and your insurance pays some money to you, we're gonna need that settlement letter, because we can go and look at it, and if there's anything that our inspectors see that your insurance didn't cover, we might be able to help. But we are going to need the settlement letter for that. What are the qualifications of your inspectors? So some of the inspectors work for FEMA, some of the inspectors are contractor, but they go to a very, very rigorous weeks of training in order for them to do this. What kind of training? Because that is not my area. I'm only for the individual. I don't know. I can tell you that they go for over 4 weeks of training to do their job. Qualifications, they can have a series of different backgrounds. How long the hotel vouchers for the claims for Helene? Okay, so how long is they can stay in a hotel? This is an individual basis. Whoever wrote this question, I would like to see it at the end. I don't have, because I have to go into your file, because not everybody has the same date. So it's gonna be depending on what time of your registration and when it was approved, and then that will give you the date. So I can look at the case and tell you specifically how long does you have until you're checked in. How do we find the status of housing assistance reimbursement request for October? Again, this is another personal question, because it sounds like it started in October. I have to look at the case and see exactly what's going on. So if you don't mind, I can see you at the end. If not, you can always look at the status of your application through the app, through disasterassistance.gov. Visit one of our DRCs or call the 800 number, which is again 1-800-621-3362. Those are the ones that I have right now. I'm sure there's more hanging around.
We have more to go through, but we'll have it.
All set.
figured it out. The question is, will the city pick up condo debris on the Isle of Capri? Our city commission had a meeting. It was scheduled, but it was short notice scheduled in a special meeting. And at that meeting, our city commission voted to pick up commercial debris across the city. Now, commercial debris is not construction debris, but it's debris from commercial entities, including condominiums, townhomes, apartment buildings, and businesses, from the damage that was experienced due to Helene and Milton. That debris will be picked up, and the city commission will decide how the funding will be done. It'll be coming out of the general fund of the city. We're going to be bringing a contract back to the city commission on the 7th of November for award of the company to be able to do that. And then we will be immediately putting out word to residents on when we're going to start doing the debris pickup, and that's the commercial debris. We have the residential debris pickup going on currently. The city is almost completely done with the first pass, and we're looking at accomplishing a second pass to get any remaining debris. But the commercial debris pickup will be advertised after the commission meeting on the 7th of November.
Can I ask one question real quick?
Sure thing.
And that is, when it's going to be, how long are you going to be picking up residential debris? Is there going to be a time limit when it stops?
Yes, there will be. We are completing a first pass of doing residential debris. We're going to do a second pass, and then we will lose the assets that the state's deployed down here for picking up the residential debris. There will be timelines put out so individuals understand when that second pass is going to be done.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Well, sort of. I'm on Capri, and we've actually had 3 times they picked up debris, and there's still more there. That's still being pulled out of the house.
There will be a cutoff point for when the next pass is done, and then we lose the assets and the resources to do any more commercial pickup, or residential pickup.
But you don't know when that's going to be.
We were only given 30 days initially from the state with the resources that were deployed here. And so we lose those resources because they're committed to another location.
So the majority of questions I have are about substantial damage and the substantial damage assessment process. The majority of questions I have are related to substantial damage and the process for assessment. So I have some general answers because I have about 15 or 20 cards, but I have only about 5 different questions. So in general, the city is required to do a substantial damage assessment on every building. We are in that process now. We have started, the team started yesterday. We are doing approximately 100 buildings a day. Trying to come up with a number for you of how many total buildings we have in Treasure Island, but I can tell you that we have approximately 2,000 structures that had major damage between the 2 storms. So there is a lot to see. So the basic process is that the inspectors come, they ask for entry, they walk through, and they do visual observations of the damage to the property. If the homeowner is not there, or the homeowner or building owner does not want the assessment done, then the assessment is done based on the data that we have. Things like high water marks, initial damage assessment, and other factors that we have evidence of. We also know the 2 abutting structures, for instance, may have had X amount of water. We have a pretty good idea in Treasure Island that most structures had at least 2 feet of water.
One question with that. Are you making those assessments based on companies coming out and doing that work, if the homeowners themselves could do the work, will that be a different assessment?
So I'll get to that in a moment. So that is the first step, is the assessment that comes through. We get that data back, city gets data once a week. We will, check that data to make sure there's not open permits that were never closed or other things that may affect those permits. And then those letters will be issued to the owners of the buildings, whether they are damaged or whether they are not, whether they're considered substantially damaged. The next step in that process, if the homeowner has or the owner has other evidence or other information on that project, there is a reevaluation request. At that time, you bring in your cost estimate, a private appraisal if you have one, which is a very specific type of cash value appraisal, which we have those forms on our website. We also have a handout with all of this information on the front table, with links to this information. So then another question is, do we need to do these substantial damage assessments? The answer is yes. The question that comes out of that is, do I need a permit? And the answer to that is yes. Our local floodplain ordinance require permits for all work in the flood zone. And all of Treasure Island is a flood zone. There have been questions about tearing out the drywall, drying out the houses, and what that process is. What that is we ask that you notify the city by email. We also have a handout for that, which I'll share that information with you. Notify the city by email, tell them we are starting the work, and come in and get a permit after that. There are two ways to do that. There's one to come in, pull in what is called an owner-builder permit. Under state statutes, that limits your ability to sell the property for 1 year, because you are taking on the work of a licensed contractor. In the case of the drywall removal, the flooring removal, the baseboard removal, that does not require a licensed contractor. So that's a little bit different than doing construction. We also are giving people the alternative to not come and get that permit and have that work tied in to your future reconstruction permit. But all the money spent and all of the value of that goes into that 50% rule. And irregardless of whether that work is done by the homeowner or done by a company, there are minimum labor rates that would apply to that. Another question that's come up is, can Treasure Island issue permits for demolition and for new construction? So the question for demolition is that you probably need a substantial damage determination for your insurance. If you are NFIP insured, and we also need to ensure that the building gets demoed. And so that's why we inspect it now, because you could pull a demo permit and never demo the building. And so the city wants to ensure that that information is reported. For new construction on an empty lot, yes, you can get a permit.
Excuse me, can you explain that demo thing again? That's a little mind-boggling.
Certainly.
So could you go, if I want to raise my house and I want a demo permit tomorrow, could I come in and get one? Like, why do you care if I have insurance or anything else? Or does the city, if it doesn't concern you if it's insured or not, if I'm paying out of pocket to get a house demo, why can't I do it?
Because we want to ensure that if the house is never demoed, whether it's determined substantially damaged or not, and we would not be able to do that in a year, most likely.
Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that anybody who had a question to please fill out a card in the back. And what we're doing is we're having the cards distributed up to the front.
That was my question. I submitted that question.
No, behind you, there's individuals who have questions. That's what it's for. So if anybody does have a question, they do have cards in the back, and we're just asking to use the card system. Thank you.
Nobody understands.
Can you guys hear me? Did I break the mic? Yep. Hold it.
Okay, so what they're saying is they want to do a substantial damage determination on a structure before it is demoed for 2 reasons. One, if you want to collect ICC, which is increased cost of compliance, you need that substantial damage letter if you have a policy. The other reason is we have seen in past events people apply for a demo permit that never demo their home, and they don't then have that assessment on file. So they want to assess the structure before that happens, correct?
How does that impact the city? Like
The city has made that decision for their administration of their floodplain. No, but they have the local rules.
No, okay, that's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
it is.
it's a local decision for the floodplain.
I'm gonna hold it for her. Now you talk. So we answered that question for you?
Not really. No, because if I wanted to demo my house, like, if I was doing it when it wasn't a storm, it wasn't even storm damage. If I was to demo my house, I go in, I get a permit, they issue the permit, and it happens right away. And I can demo it, or I guess apparently if I don't want to demo it, the permit's only good for a year. But it's no different before the storm or post-storm, and it makes no sense that a lot of people want to get their houses demoed so they can start fresh, and they can't get a permit. How long does it take to get a permit?
Okay, yes, we'll, after the meeting, come up and we'll explain exactly. Okay, everybody wants to know, it is a regulation that your community has decided that's how they're going to do the permits for demolition for a home.
Well, who made that decision?
Your elected officials, yes. No. Okay, right. So let's start back for just a second. You have a flood ordinance, okay? And in that ordinance, lists things that must be done or can't be done in a flood, in a special flood hazard area. So in that, either it lists this or it has a permit section that lists everything that can go on in your community. And it's not a FEMA ordinance, it's your community's ordinance. There's guidelines for state and FEMA that can back it up, but essentially it's your ordinance, your community decided on it.
No, nobody. So, simple question, if I want to come and demo my house, how long is it going to take for you to get a permit?
So, right now, we have been advised that demo permits are required. So, we will look into that get some answers out on our webpage, but our understanding is that the danger lies for the city in not having a substantial damage assessment on a building that's being rehabbed or still standing.
Who's advised that you said you were being advised by who? Who's giving you the advice? You're the head of the department.
There is FEMA guidance and there is lessons learned from other cities that have had problems. We've attended webinars. We are trying to make sure that we protect the city's flood insurance ratings. And that's our primary goal. Okay, we're going to move on with the questions that were submitted in writing, and I will read them to you.
Sir, I understand that you're having trouble hearing. There are some chairs that you can move up to the front that would assist in making sure that you can hear. Thank you. I did hear you on that, so you're saying please repeat the question before providing the answer. Thank you.
So the next question I have is, when will the substantial damage report be done in our neighborhood, Paradise Island? And when will we get the report and how? So the answer to that question is, we are working now. We have teams out. They started yesterday. Currently, we have 2 teams working. They're doing about 100 structures a day. As I noted, we have at least 2,000 damaged residential structures. We're focusing on residential or primary. So that is approximately 22 days. But we are going to be releasing these letters as we get the data. And so, as I noted earlier, we're going to ground truth these, and then we're going to issue the letters. The letters will be mailed, and if we have your contact information on a permit, because we don't have phone numbers for people, and we don't have emails for people, if there's a permit in, we will contact you by the information on the permit.
If I could add to that, we have also requested through the county to the state to bring in more teams to accelerate this process. The 2 teams we have on the ground, we put in a request, I think it's for 4 to 5 more teams to come in to try and get this done as quickly as possible.
Just a quick clarification, I'm in a condo that flooded. When you say residential, does that mean you're looking at individual residences?
Ma'am, if you could please fill out a card in the back. Okay, I'm sure she'll get to it, thank you.
Clarification on that, what you just answered.
So the question that was asked is, are the teams doing condos? Yes, the teams are doing condos. Another related question on condos, not from the same person, was how was a condo evaluated and how do we look at that? So that building has a value. The work that needs to be done in all of the units of the building is aggregated into that 50% determination. The condo association itself is going to figure out who gets what percentages. I understand that in most cases, it's in the condominium documents as to how these items are dealt with, but that's a private matter between the owners and the association.
I have a question. It says, why can't the city issue permits at no charge to help our homeowners who are suffering financially for storm-related expenses?
That was my question, and you didn't read the first part.
You're right, sir, because that wasn't a question. The question that you have here, it says, why can't the city issue permits at no
The first
charge to
sentence
help?
was the city is going to reap profits from the permits. That was the first sentence. Why do that?
Thank you for your clarification. But the question was, why can't the city issue permits at no charge to help homeowners who are suffering financially from storm-related expenses? There was a number of fees that the city commission voted that they would suspend, and I think it's until the 30th of November of this year. The city commission did vote to waive city permit fees for the following permit applications: interior demolition of flood damaged drywall, flooring, baseboards, and cabinets, fence installation, tree removal, roof repair replacement, electrical for meter bases, and power surge on appliances. So those are the items that did have the permit fees waived.
Could you repeat that, please, for the sake of everybody? That was fast.
Oh.
Well, probably is.
I think it's because I'm nervous.
That's all right.
Okay. The city commission has waived the permit fees from the period from October 7th until November 30th for interior demolition of flood damaged drywall, flooring, baseboards, and cabinets, fence installation, tree removal, roof repair and replacement, and electrical for meter bases or power surges on appliances.
That's not enough time.
That information is also available on the city's website.
Profits.
So I had a question regarding how can we expedite letting people know what the determination is on their structures. And the person noted that snail mail takes forever and a lot of people are not at their houses. And they had a very good suggestion that our staff have access to that information for people that come in, and we will definitely do that.
A lot of people don't have mailboxes.
Right,
That's what I
yeah,
think.
no, FEMA took mine. Yeah,
The next question is when we talk about work that was done by the homeowners or labor rates. So one of the questions was, what are the labor rates we're using? And we are working with the county. The county has done a lot of research and outreach, working with to ground truth a lot of costs based on their permit history. And so those are the types of numbers, and we'll have that published shortly. The county was having, I think, a finalization meeting this week. Another question was, should I go ahead and get an appraisal to see if my repairs are below the 50%? So we're talking about the private cash value appraisal. The answer to that is, it's up to you. If timing is an issue for you and you think that you're close based on some estimates that you have and based on the property appraiser value, that's a decision you need to make, but you can't. You have that option if you believe that you're going to come in and need a reevaluation.
So you can do that whenever. If you need to later, you can do that later.
Yes, you can do it now, you can do it later. Basically, those appraisals go back to the pre-storm condition of the house. And we have on our website, on the forms page, we actually have an outline of that process and what that appraisal actually does. Another question was, once we finish substantial damage determinations, what happens to the permits? So the permits that are already submitted are in a queue right now. And the first review is substantial damage. Once that is clear, somebody is not substantially damaged, those permits go immediately into the queue for review and issuance.
On that same point, are the people who have permits pending, are they being prioritized in the
they're being prioritized for the substantial damage letters and then for the permits.
What I would like, Catherine, if you could take a few minutes, I know you're trying to figure out which ones are repetitive and they're not repetitive. And in the meantime, what I would like to do is ask the representative from Haggerty Consulting to offer a little information on the experience that they have gone through in Lee County and some of the other information that you've heard tonight.
Thank you. So my name is Shirley. I'm with Haggerty Consulting. Sorry, can you hear me now? Yeah. Sorry. So I'm Shirley with Haggerty Consulting, and I would like to offer my experience working with the municipalities within Lee County and how they have been impacted after Hurricane Ian because of how they documented substantial damage assessment process. In particular, Cape Coral, and this is an example that Evan provided this week when Kevin Godry went to the county. He mentioned that the city of Cape Coral, they changed their ordinance after the disaster to update how they were valuing the 50% rule. FEMA came back because FEMA will hold you to the way the ordinance was at the time of the disaster. This is a reason why you can change the law after the disaster. FEMA will look for the jurisdiction to be in compliance with the local ordinances at the time of the disaster. But going back to why substantial damage assessments are a requirement is because the federal law says that an NFIP requires substantial damage assessments as a mechanism to verify that the properties within the floodplain are in compliance with the floodplain regulations. The ordinances at the jurisdiction, at the local level, at the time of the disaster. That's one thing. NFIP has a lot of requirements, and to maintain good standing with NFIP, you need to do substantial damage assessment. And that will give you a lot of benefits because you might get discounts, and in addition to having discounts, you might get access to grant funding. I'm not sure if you are familiar with grant programs such as hazard mitigation grant program, flood mitigation assistance, and community development grant. The two first programs are FEMA-related assistance that might be available to the jurisdictions after a disaster or annually, and then the third one is disaster program assistance funded by HUD that might be available. If you don't have NFIP, none of those entities will fund projects that are located within the floodplain. So just to, and this is very high level, but just to highlight the importance of complying with NFIP regulations, and as part of that, the substantial damage assessment process. In the case of Lee County, another reason why substantial damage assessments are important is because it's a way to verify that unpermitted work is not being done. So the quickest that you can get to it, the better is a mechanism to prevent unpermitted work. Another thing that is important to have in consideration is that maybe you don't see it right now, but we have seen multiple jurisdictions. And a good example would be Louisiana. They didn't do proactive substantial damage assessments back in 2016, and 4 years later, they were audited. And they had to go back and issue substantial damage letters that they didn't issue back in 2016. Same with Lee County. we're talking about a process that happened back in 2022, and it's 2024, and they're working on that right now, because FEMA and the federal government, they will look at it, they will audit, and they will ask questions. It can be 1 year from now, it can be 3 years down the road, but substantial damage assessment are important to document that the verification happened and that permitted work is properly documented, and that the city in this case is enforcing their ordinance in the way that is expected to be able to participate in NFIP.
I'm trying to understand, the substantial damage assessment, clearly it has to be done. Does FEMA require that it be done before permits are issued?
Yes.
As I'm reading the thing, there's two options, and it says you can do it after, you can go through the normal permitting process.
So, the 750, I didn't touch it, I didn't
If you
touch
want to,
it.
this is easy.
I didn't touch it.
There are two options listed in P 758, substantial improvements, substantial damage assessment. The community has chosen to go with the first option. They are choosing to assess all the damage in the community before issuing permits. That is their right. So they've chosen to go with they've chosen to go with option one. They would still have to confirm all the damages to the structures if they issue permits. They are administering their ordinance at the local level and have chosen to do inspections before issuing.
Who made that decision?
The city.
No, who in the city?
Who is the city? This is yours. That's yours.
As I explained last night at the commission meeting, there's option 1 and option 2. Option 1 had requirements, and I don't remember them off the top of my head, where, I think it was substantial damage assessments are done first, and then individuals are asked to submit a permit. And once we get all the information from the substantial damage assessment, the information is input, and then a determination is made as to the 50% threshold according to the NFIP program. And the individuals, or the property owners, are appraised of what that result is. Option 2 asks individuals to come in and apply for permits, and then from when the permits are applied for, we do substantial damage assessments at that time. And you're nodding up, but that is what it says.
No, I can read.
Please let me finish. Thank you. As I explained last night, there's option 1 and option 2. The city is kind of hybriding those two options so we can accelerate this for our residents. What we're doing is performing substantial damage assessments, getting that information at the same time as taking the permits. We're not telling residents you can't apply for permits. We're not stopping people from applying for permits. We're asking people to please provide and apply for those permits. We will get the substantial damage assessments done, get that information, and then tell the homeowners, or the property owners, the result of the threshold of the 50% rule. And then from there, permits can be issued.
So who made that decision on behalf of the city? Was it you?
That decision was made here locally, yes, within city staff. So city staff works for myself, the city manager.
So you made that decision?
So I approved that decision.
There you go.
You're fired.
The idea behind having this was to make sure that we could keep the citizens and their structures in compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program, not jeopardize anything associated with that program, to keep reduced rates for flood insurance at the same time that we can complete the requirements that we need to do in order to meet substantial damage assessments and the FEMA requirements that go to the 50% threshold. Yes, ma'am.
Who is doing the financial substantial damage assessment inspections? Is it Treasure Island? Is it FEMA? Is it Pinellas County officials?
Is it a combination? How many people are on these teams that are doing 100 properties a day? Please repeat my question for the people in the back.
So the question was, how many damage assessment teams are there? How many people on the teams? And
Who are they? TI? Are they Pinellas? Are they FEMA? She answered that question earlier. Oh, you did, I'm sorry, I'm not pressed.
And the third question was, who is on the team? So right now, the teams on the ground are from a combination of state employees from the Florida Division of Emergency Management, along with consultants hired by the Florida Division of Emergency Management. They are a contracting company called Tidal Basin. They are working in Pinellas County as well as 15 cities within the county to do these assessments. They have brought in 2 teams. They have told us we'll have 3 very soon, and they have already asked to expand that even further through the program that we're working in. We also are trying, we just got 6 temporary employees, which was another question here, to help process permits and do the substantial damage. They've been training, and we're going to try to have a supplemental team out in the field is our next step.
And this is, as I understand it, different than the original FEMA inspection for Helene and another one for Delta.
So what staff did for the first 6, 7, 8 days after each storm, or between the storms, we were out doing what's called an initial damage assessment. And what that is that collects information like water lines on the buildings and an assessment of how much water went into each structure. And for Helene and for Milton, roof damage, shingle damage, the wind damage that we saw. And that data is used to go to the county, is aggregated to go to FEMA, and that brings in disaster assistance.
The FEMA inspectors are for individual cities, so for Millie's programs. And then you might have had a flood insurance adjuster come in if you had a flood insurance policy. There's lots of people looking at your house.
So the next question I had was about the 50% and what it's based on. So the data that's being used in the initial substantial damage assessment is something on the property appraiser's website, and it's called your FEMA FEMA letter. You'll see it on the property appraiser's website. I understand FEMA doesn't like that term, but that's what the property appraiser has right now. That gives you the value of your structure only, and then the 50% value. So that's the initial look that we'll take at the substantial damage. But as we noted, you have the option to come back with a private appraisal. Another question regarding the 50% rule was, what time period is the 50% rule? And I think this is a little bit of a confusion between substantial damage and substantial improvement. So substantial improvement, some cities have what's called a cumulative substantial improvement, where all your improvements over a, say, 5-year period go into that 50% calculation when you're improving your home. That's very different than substantial damage. And substantial damage, what that requirement is it has to be less than the 50% value of the structure to return your structure to its pre-damaged condition. So those are actually quite different things. The city of Treasure Island does not have a cumulative, even if we're looking at substantial improvement. So I had another question, which The question is actually, do we need to wait for a permit before replacing drywall in a garage, which is lower level and not living space? And this was specific to a townhome condo, but I'm gonna apply it to any building that might be compliant with the local floodplain regulations. And so what that means, there's a lot of structures that are elevated that have a garage underneath and no living space on the ground floor. And we are in the process now of pulling out all the permits that we have for those type of buildings to confirm that they're FEMA compliant, they haven't been enclosed, they meet the current elevation requirements, and those are gonna go right through the permitting process now. But everything in the floodplain requires a permit. The question, as I understand it, is if you have something enclosed below base flood that's not allowed to be living space, is that the question?
Post-firm building.
A post-firm building. Yes, we have to go through a review and make sure the building is FEMA compliant to the current floodplain, and then yes, we can issue a permit.
I had a question that states, who is responsible for residential debris removal, FEMA or the city? And it said that this question is not specific to Treasure Island. I can answer it for Treasure Island. So FEMA has what's called categories on reimbursable items. Debris removal is one of those categories and is actually category A. What that means is that 100% of the cost for the first 30 days from the declaration of emergency, those items are reimbursable at 100%. So debris removal from the city of Treasure Island was accomplished from city staff by working either through the county or a private contract to get debris removal contractors in here to start collecting the debris, but doing it according to the FEMA requirements so that we would be eligible for reimbursement. For example, we're talking about commercial debris pickup here that the commission just voted to do. There was two options that the commission had. One of them was to come in and just to do the debris removal in a quick and efficient manner, but not to follow the FEMA guidelines for monitoring and for having specific areas that you could take the debris to. The city opted to do that because if you follow the FEMA requirements, it increased the cost a little bit more than 2 times the amount of the amount that was approved from the commission. But going back to the question at hand here, it is a category A reimbursable expense to FEMA, and we are reimbursed at 100% rate for the first 30 days, which has now been extended to 90 days for this category and for this for debris removal.
The next question is, because many of the restaurants on Treasure Island have been hit hard by storm damage and lack of revenue, is the city opposed to allowing these restaurants to open a food truck or trailer with proper insurance coverage and licensing? And is a permit needed? So the city is not opposed. We've already talked to a couple of restaurant owners that are bringing in food trucks to do this. There is a food truck handout on our website. I'm happy to, get that information for anybody that wants that. That just basically says you need your state license and you can't park in the visibility triangle and you need a business license. So. have a question. Will FEMA accept contractor estimates under Part 1? And I'm not quite sure what you mean, Part 1. That person here?
Maybe option one?
So if we're talking about what's commonly known as option 1, where we do a substantial damage assessment before issuing permits, that is in the reevaluation part of this. When the permits come in, and if anybody wants a reassessment, they bring in their contractor estimate. So one question that's on quite a few cards is, how will the property owners know if a substantial damage estimate has been done, and will they be notified when they're coming to their house? They are just going as efficiently as possible up and down the streets and doing every house that they can do. I'm sure they're gonna go back and catch the ones that they couldn't do, but they are doing them, as I noted earlier, based on the information that we do have.
So then really it's just based on square foot. You can't get in the house, you can't see it.
We have, as I explained, data like water lines, surveyed flood lines, and other information that's going to help us to know how much water was in the house, and that helps us to know the percentage of damage.
Does FEMA care if you switch from option 1 to option 2 in order to expedite this? There are workers sitting doing nothing, houses sitting, basically everybody's waiting.
I have a
work process, and does FEMA care as long as the SDE is done?
Sir, if you could please put that on a card, because I think we only heard about half of it, that's why. And if it is, then it's something that will be covered, thank you.
So the next question, as an owner contractor of a triplex rental building, if FEMA says I can't rebuild because this determination of building costs goes over the 50%, can an independent appraiser overrule the tax appraiser value? So that is the reassessment we talked about with the cash value appraisal. The next question I have is, do homeowners need permits for minor repairs like soffits, shingles, and drywall? There is a list on our homepage for the building department of things that do not need permits, but these particular things do need permits.
Hello? Yeah. Mark. Okay, it says, is FEMA helping raise homes 7 foot above level if you don't have any insurance? That's where the grants come in. And if you have a local mitigation strategy, it is a county-run meeting where the communities can give the information to the county what they need and what they, for mitigation, generators, different things like that. They need pump stations, lift stations, and if they have LMS, then they can also put in for grants. There's a hazard mitigation grant program. You have to be part of this LMS to be a sub-applicant for the grant, and then there's a residential mitigation that you could qualify for. So I'm going to give you the email address. If you have questions about the residential mitigation, that you can email and you'll get an answer back. And this is through the state. And the email is residential mitigation at em.myflorida.com. And you can use that email for any questions you might have about any grants. There's also a FEMA Swift Current grant. And you can use they have their own email, and it's swiftcurrent at em.myflorida.com.
What was the first email?
The first email is residential mitigation at em.myflorida.com. The second email is swiftcurrent at em.myflorida.com.
Is that for individuals, or can you do it as a city as a whole? Can you apply for
The residential is for individuals. Now most of these grants, you have to go through your city. But for more information, you can email the address that I gave you, and you get more information. Therefore, when you go to another board meeting, you can ask the questions. Are we a sub-applicant for one of these grants? Okay.
So I have a question about specific flood insurance, and it has the numbers 150,000 and 30,000. So I'd like to talk to this person individually, unless they're talking about the increased cost of compliance. Is it a question about increased cost of compliance? Does everybody know what that is?
No.
Tell us about that.
Okay, so if you have a flood insurance policy and you're substantially damaged by flood, there's an additional $30,000 that you could be eligible for above your claim to bring your structure into compliance. You're still capped at the $250,000, so if you got a full $250,000 claim, you don't have access to this $30,000. But if it's less than that, you have access to more money to bring your structure into compliance. It is $30,000 because of an act of Congress, and every year we tell Congress we would like that number raised, but it is not a FEMA decision. Congress has mandated that right now it's $30,000 only.
What is the success rate for that?
If you're substantially damaged by flood and you have a policy, if you bring your structure into compliance, 100%. It's not something that you have to compete for. It's part of your policy if you have a national flood insurance policy.
Okay, it seems like everybody wants to know this question. What are the qualifications of the individuals making the life-changing determinations on people's properties? The city inspectors and contractors. When a city puts in a request for additional help, the state puts out a bid and vendors apply. They have to have the qualifications that we deem necessary to go out into the community to make these decisions. What they're doing is having the percentage that they see at the time. That is not a final number. They are not crunching the numbers to make a substantial damage determination. They're getting data and they're putting it in a form or in the computer, in a tablet, however the city or the county wants it handled. That data goes to the community, city or the county, and the floodplain administrator, along with the building official, will crunch those numbers to make the substantial damage determination. So it's not the people out there that you see doing these inspections. They're just gathering the data. I hope that kind of clarifies some of the, if they're qualified or not.
How many a day are they doing normally?
I heard Catherine say they were doing 100 a day.
So like per individual, how many a day do you do?
They're in a team, so they're.
So 100 were done yesterday. How many people were out?
I don't know that answer.
Why is it involved? Because if it's spending 20 minutes on a property, that information that we're gathering can't be that detailed. That's why it's involved.
They're trained because I'm the one doing the training. I know they are capturing the data. They are not crunching numbers. There's a difference. They're not making the determination on your home. The floodplain administrator and the local building official are. And they're gathering data, so when they come in to get a permit, the permit technician will look at the data. And if the resident decides that they don't agree with it, then they can appeal that decision and have a second evaluation. They can have a contractor's estimate or get an appraisal.
Question is, with 2,000 structures and 100 a day, do the substantial damage assessment teams happen on the weekends or just weekdays? They are working weekends. To my knowledge, we had 2 teams yesterday, and it looks like 3 teams today. We will confirm that. I have a question. Can the city arrive at a substantial damage determination with alternative methods, i.e. electronically, as to speed up permitting? So I'm not quite sure what that question is. We are using the data that we have. We're gathering information on the ground. We're bringing it back to the office, and we're making those determinations as quickly as we can. As I noted, we have brought in extra people. We are waiting for some more extra people to help with all of this data. I think the question was that if we're not home, if we're not there, they can't get in the property, then what's the difference between just doing it in the computer or actually having these people having to walk the street? Because we don't know when they come there. We did not get inside.
So, as I noted, they attempt to knock on the door, see if they can go in. At the speed they're moving, they cannot ensure that they can go in. But if you want them to go in and they haven't been in to your knowledge, because you would have to let them in, or your neighbor or someone, who had your keys would have to let them in. So, if you want them to come back, please email permits@mytreasureisland.org, and make that request, we'll put that request into the system. You will know because you'll receive a substantial damage determination letter.
In the mailbox, we don't have.
I don't have a mailbox, so can we ask to be notified so we can be at the property?
They can't do that on the first sweep. What I'm saying is if you want to ensure that if they haven't been able to get in and you want them to get in, if you can email permits@mytreasureisland.org, we will have your contact information and share that with the teams.
Could the state representative explain to us, because I don't think anybody knows with these assessments what actually happened. So could you explain one where they go in the house, how long are they there, what do they look at? And one, and then the other one is if there's nobody home, what do they do? Did you train them, do you know what they do?
Okay, so okay, so he's wondering though, what do the vendors look for? And if they can't get in a home, what do they look for and how do they put the percentages? So if they're on the outside, you're not home or you don't answer the door, they're going to do an assessment based on what they see. Now, the community has gathered high water marks, so they know in your area how high the water came on the outside of your house, and they can estimate how much water was on the inside of your house. Okay? So, and how long the water stayed in there, they've been given that information from the community. So there's just things that you know will need to be replaced. Carpet, drywall, depends on how high it went up. The electrical outlets are normally 18 inches from the floor. So if you have water, say 3 feet or just over 18 inches, your electrical has now got salt water in it. That will need to be replaced. Your doors are going to be warped, so you're going to have them replaced. So it's different things like that that they will go in to look at. And on the outside, they can do the same thing because they know how high the watermark was. We have to go and do substantial damage estimates on every structure. It's a regulation. So whether we get to go inside or outside. Oh, okay. And so, I mean, it's, and that, what I said before is that these vendors are gathering data. They're not making the decision. So it's going to be up to the homeowner to decide if they agree with the percentage. If you don't, then you can appeal it. So it's a reassessment, and you can bring more photos of your inside of your home to show that you had damage or you didn't have damage. You can have a appraisal done, or if you have a contractor, they can write out the contractor, you know, what the price is that he's going to charge to fix the home on any of the things that were damaged.
I've heard people talk about.
So I'm going to add one thing to her comments. They, yes, can estimate about the external water line, but a lot of the wind damage is visible from the outside. So they're also looking at all damage that has occurred to the structure. If they can't get inside, they're making estimates based on the external water line, and they can visually see 30% of the roof is impacted, or 50% of the roof is impacted. And they're collecting that data individually for each structure, so that those reports can go into the local files for each address.
Am I answering this question? Yeah.
Have those keys just leave a mark at the door or in the mailbox, so you get a card and not a single
That's something that the city can request if they choose to. I mean, it'll slow down the process, but you will get, listen guys.
Some lamb's blood over the doorway?
If you wanna put a sticky on your front door and say, can you mark it here that you've been here, go for it.
If we have to appeal, do we appeal to the city or do we appeal to you, and how long is that process?
No, you appeal to the city.
How long is that process?
That's up to the city.
We haven't even walked down that path yet. So I couldn't give you a timeline on how long it would take with the city.
Okay, I'll answer.
I'm a little confused because I have my adjuster come out from my insurance company that I have my house insured by. And how does that, if it's in conflict with what number of values you have, how does that work?
They are two separate things. They don't talk with each other. It just doesn't. Now, the city can pull that data to know that you had damage because you were paid out by your insurance company. And, yeah, the NFIP, not your homeowners. Okay.
I'm sorry, I did write this question down, so it's just, I can't even get to it.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
People come out today, okay, it's damage, they come up, they do stuff, they took a photo of the inside, photo of the watermark, asked if I had roof damage, any windows damage, stuff like that, and they left, literally, they were there for 2 minutes. You know, so they're not there long, but they were just there and gone, and took those 2 photos, that's all they needed. So it was a very quick process, is what I'm saying, so they're going, they're there and gone.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you have questions, if you could please put them on the cards. And if you have submitted them, we are working to get to them. No, the cards are not finished. There was a question here, are minutes to the meeting going to be available online? There will not be any meeting minutes available. This is being broadcast on Facebook Live. It is also being recorded and will be posted after the meeting is concluded. I have another question that says, can the city have an emergency meeting to switch to option 2? And I think who was ever writing the question was referring to the commission having an emergency meeting. And if the commission wanted to have an emergency meeting, or was suggested to have an emergency meeting, yes, they could, if they wanted to switch between option 1 and option 2. As I mentioned last night, and I mentioned here earlier, we are doing basically the both options at the same time. What we're trying to do is to streamline and accelerate the process. If you take option 1, you have the permit applied for first, substantial damage assessment is done next, and then the decision is made to the property owner. Under option 2, or excuse me, I've got that backwards, that is option 2. On option, so option 1 would be a substantial damage assessment first, then the permit is applied for and a decision is given to the individual. Option 2 would be the permit is applied for first, the substantial damage assessment is completed, and the decision is provided to the homeowner. What we are doing is taking in permits, and we're having individuals apply for permits while we're doing the substantial damage assessment.
So the permit is, under option 2, permit's only granted after substantial damage assessment is made and a notice goes out, then the permit's granted?
Correct, that's when the permit would.
How it reads?
Correct.
Can you read it exactly how it reads?
Yeah, I can.
I feel like you guys don't want to read out options the way it's stated. And I know you guys are getting annoyed with this, but trust us, we're employees.
All right, this manual desk reference is online under FEMA. Go to FEMA.gov and put in SISD desk reference. And when you do that and pull it up, it is on page 7-6. Okay? Okay, so it says they can proactively inspect buildings soon after the event and use available information to estimate repair costs and market values. Those data can then be used to develop substantial damage determination in advance of owners submitting applications with more detail. Or they can notify owners of the requirement to get permits and then wait. They can notify owners of the requirement to get permits and then wait for property owners to apply for permits and make substantial damage determinations at that time, following their normal permit review procedures. Now let me show you something. This book is in the process of being updated.
Yeah, but that's post-storm.
So in the event when it does come out, it probably will have one option.
Yeah, but the storm already happened. We're already suffered.
I know.
So
But
we're living with the two options.
no, I'm sorry, that's not how your community decided to do this. Okay, I don't know how to address that. So I'm gonna refer back to y'all.
Ladies and gentlemen, I do hear, and this was discussed last night, about the difference in option 1 and option 2. And under option 2, you have a permit applied for. A substantial damage assessment is completed, and then a decision is provided to the homeowner. What we're doing and what we're trying to do is to get both things done at the same time. There is no rationale to try to make it go any slower. When you run things concurrently, you're taking information from multiple sources. We're not telling people who need to get permits that they can't apply. Why would we stop individuals from applying for a permit?
No, we're okay with applying for a permit. We want the permit.
But you need to have a substantial damage assessment completed, sir, in order to remain compliant with the National Flood Insurance Program. We need to get the substantial damage assessment completed.
Which can be done through the numbers
and provided back through the decision that ties into the National Flood Improvement Program and the 50% threshold.
So I have a question here. So if the home has more than 50% damage, what will happen? So I'm going to answer that. And then I'll have, what is required is if your home has received 50% or more damage from the market value of just the structure, it's considered substantially damaged and needs to come into compliance with current code and current regulations. That's elevate or tear down, rebuild or tear down. So you would have to bring the structure, however that is achieved, into compliance with local current codes. So that's
I have a house that's 100 years old. It's El Gulf of Mexico. It has never had damage till this. Never. It's 4 feet off the ground and it goes all the way down, and the garage is the only thing on the ground. But I've never had a drop. Donna went through here in 1961. I stayed in that house. We lost 2 shingles. Nature did everything it was supposed to. Overbuilding doesn't help. And keeping these sewer drains running helps.
Yeah.
Did you write it down? So we have to raise our houses up for what?
That's what the city's said.
DMV plus one.
They said 12 feet.
So if we don't raise our houses, we don't get to live in them. We don't get any money to fix them. Is that what you're saying?
Do you have insurance?
Yeah. Oh, you still get the insurance. Just
But
like
the
the
requirement. So the question was, do you not get money if you don't elevate? You get the insurance payout from the dam. How you're supposed to repair it is in compliance with the local codes.
Like, does FEMA get any money?
The mitigation grants we were talking about before is what, the state is still determining how much they'll get for grants and how much the counties will get. That number is based on the total disaster. So they don't know how much money they'll have, how much communities will get, and how they're going to prioritize residential mitigation. That's why that email, residential mitigation at em.myflorida.com.
Does the rule apply to only Treasure Island, or throughout the Florida, to all the homes that were flooded during the storm?
So the question is, does that just apply to Treasure Island? No. If your community participates in the National Flood Insurance Program, the minimum standards to participate, and I'm going to put an asterisk there and come back, say that if you're substantially damaged, you then have to come in compliance with local codes. That is the same across the entire country. Some communities have higher standards that either lower that threshold or count damage and improvement over time. So there's a higher standard than a FEMA minimum standard. But no, if a community participates in the program, damage in the special flood hazard area, that is the requirement.
I would like some clarification on one thing on option 2. On option 2, it states not a substantial damage assessment, but that you are getting a substantial damage determination. And to me, a substantial damage determination would be an outcome, the result, the status of your property. And from what I heard when you read last night, Chuck, on option 2, that it said that you will get a substantial damage determination, not assessment, determination, by using your standard operating permitting procedures. And so can you please clarify on option 2, is there a mandate that requires an assessment, or can you get that determination through standard permitting procedures?
So the city has chosen to make substantial damage assessments and determinations by collecting data. This is a good way to protect themselves from liability issues. In the past, in other communities, people have come in for permits that have not included all the costs to repair damage, and the community was not aware of it. Even to the point where homeowners were signing affidavits that they had no flood damage, and then later the city found out that, not this city, us city, found out that there was flood insurance claims. So what the city is doing is protecting themselves by understanding all the damages that have occurred to the structures.
Okay, but can you answer my question about option 2? Does it require a substantial damage assessment, or does it allow you to make a the city, make a substantial damage determination, not an assessment, a determination using standard permitting procedures? Does option 2 allow for that?
So that is one of the options a community may use. Yes, is when somebody comes in for a permit, they make the substantial damage determination at that point. The city has chosen not to do that.
Right, but I'm just clarifying that option 2 would have allowed the city to make substantial damage determinations, not by using substantial damage assessments, like purely by using what we residents are submitting as our permits. That's how I understood it.
So yes, that's what option 2 says. In here, yes, that is what it says. Yes.
The no look back policy is gonna have to change by FEMA.
No, we don't have those things.
So the question was the look back period. The city of Treasure Island do not have a look back period for improvements or damage. And FEMA doesn't make that, that's a higher standard than our minimum standard. That, so each community has their own regulations, some of them are higher than the minimum standards. I do not know off the top of my head which communities in Florida have higher standards.
I know, but we don't.
City of Treasure Island does not.
Yeah, she said we don't have to.
So, we'd like to move on to the people who submitted questions. The next question is, as of today, how many permits have been submitted? And I don't have that this afternoon because we didn't have our afternoon meeting, but as of yesterday, we had 450. We were asked if we could create a flow chart on these processes and procedures and put that on our website. We would be happy to do that, and we will do that. I think there's probably both sides of the questions, both the permitting side and the FEMA assistance side. Is that to clarify this question?
Is it possible to do that on residential and condos? Because those of us in condos are kind of.
Sure.
We're still in the dark.
I'm trying to figure out the land assessment on a condo building. How does that work?
The home was substantially damaged with roof loss. Does the city have a timeline for required demolition or penalties if not made safe? So for the structures that the city has tagged as unsafe, and for other structures that we may not have seen yet, I think we've seen them all, but maybe we haven't. The guidance is that you need to get an architect or engineer to determine if that building is safe to enter, safe to live in, and whether that needs permitted repairs or they can deem it safe in some way. So we understand that just like everyone here, everybody has been very affected by the storm in this area. And so getting that determination is probably going to take you some time. So we're not actively pursuing codes cases on people who are trying to resolve problems right now. We are actively pursuing codes for work without permits or for unlicensed contractors.
I asked that question. The house, unfortunately, my neighbor lost the entire roof of their house. It is not livable, and they flooded during rain. There's no tag on that roof. So how do we make sure someone comes in, looks at that building, and makes sure that that building is deemed unsafe, and is able to go through a faster process?
So the question was, would the city come and deem a building that has not been deemed unsafe? Yes, if you'll come up to me afterwards, we can look into that. The next question I have is, does FEMA allow fill dirt behind seawalls? It has been reported that up to 2 feet is allowed. Is that true? So I don't know the FEMA regulations other than I know there's a maximum of 2 feet in a B zone for fill in the FEMA regulations, but Treasure Island is a no-fill city, and so the only way to increase the height of a seawall is to be able to regrade your property. So I have a question. If I have drywall install, water heater replacement, AC, and no structural construction, why can't I manage these repairs without a GC? So that goes back to the owner-builder permit that we talked about earlier. But the purpose of that owner-builder is for things that would normally require a license. You would not need a GC if you hired 3 qualified, well, you could do your plumbing, your AC,
but the drywall would require a separate permit if you did that. So you could have your plumber pull your hot water heater permit. Those are what we call, over-the-counter permits as soon as a substantial damage determination has been made. So is the AC. Those are both permits that are issued upon receipt as long as they have the required information. So the only thing you would need is the drywall installed, and that would require an owner builder if you were going to do that yourself without a licensed person. The reason that you cannot sell your property within a year is the state wants to protect the potential buyer from work that was not done by a licensed person. I'm not clear on your question.
Even though there's a state statute that you mentioned a couple of times about the owner rule, and if you're an owner and you have you go pull a permit and you have somebody in your house and it's competent and everything else, you have it inspected. Anyway, I've done this. The law states here in the city, they adopted that rule from state statutes, but they don't have to, it's not mandated. The last time I read about it. So they have it here, so we the people want to remove that from our ordinance. If an owner holds a permit, it has to be inspected, so I know it has to, you're not a commissioner, but.
No, this is an exception to using a licensed contractor under state law.
Right, but it reads whether the affidavit that is in the committee, because I have gone through this, you cannot sell or rent your house for a whole year, right?
That is
the result of the consequence of this. That's why it's bad for a lot of people.
Yes, I understand it's that, but this is state law that we're following.
Well, okay, we could bring it up to the commissioners and have, and really discuss this at a commissioner level to remove that ordinance. Can I just a follow-up to that? When's the 1 year date? Like, I think I wrote it up, but when does that clock start to take place? After the permit is closed? When we can sell our house if we decide to continue this house? Is that from the day we apply?
I would assume it's of the date of the closing, but I'd have to look at the statutes. The next question we had was my contractor said that inside drywall replacement that was less than 25% of the original total did not require a permit. Is that true or not? That is not true.
We have a couple more questions. To be honest, you didn't touch it.
Can you hear me back there? Okay, I'm gonna give them just a quick break so they can continue to read their questions. I'm gonna go back to the individual assistance and housing. Okay, I have a few questions. I think it's the same person, it's the same handwriting, so I'm sure they thought that I lost the question, but it was here all the time. All right, it says, there was only one hotel listed on the FEMA website for St. Petersburg, which was booked indefinitely. There are 17 total listed with a 25-mile radius, all booked indefinitely. What is FEMA doing to secure additional housing or hotel chains for people that's still waiting for emergency housing? So the hotels that want to participate are participating. We cannot force them to participate. So I was at a meeting today is Wednesday, I think it was Monday. And the hotel commissioner for the area was there, and we sent them an email saying, please make sure that your hotels go into this website and make themselves available for, if they have any vacant rooms. So it's up to the hotels at this point, but we did reach out and we did tell them to please, if you do have any rooms available that you're willing to share with the Transitional Shelter Assistance for Survivors of Florida, please go ahead and submit your request. Also, the state, I know that you guys want to stay obviously close to your homes, you don't want to go too far, so you can go 25 miles out, 50 or 100, and for the state of Florida, it was also requested for the state of Alabama and the state of Georgia to open hotels for those who will and wish to go out to those states. Obviously, at this point, it's up to the hotel's availability. So that's what we're doing. We can force them. So we are giving them the option. There was also, this was a text message. Somebody has my phone. Okay, so for those of you that lost your job or have a break on your employment, self-employment, or businesses as a direct result of any of the 3 disasters, you can apply for disaster unemployment assistance. That is something that we grant the state. So all you have to do is go to your unemployment page for the state of Florida and see if you qualify. You have to do it under unemployment disaster assistance, or DUA. Okay? Whoever has my phone, do not give it away. I own a property that has 2 structures, residential, on a parcel. Do I need to file 2 cases? Well, one is your primary residence. One is the one that you live in. The other one, you cannot live in 2 places at the same time. So the other one is considered probably a secondary home, or maybe you have it rented out to somebody else. If that is the case, that person can apply for their personal property on that structure, and it's considered probably a secondary home, and they can, my friend here for the Small Business Administration can talk to you about options for that secondary home. We haven't received anything from our insurance company, and FEMA is not helping us because we are insured. We have been displaced for over 30 days with 2 kids and under the age of 6. I need to talk to you, whoever you are. So when we are done, let me know. But so that you know, we're still going to require for you to submit your insurance denial or your insurance settlement if you did say that you have any kind of insurance. But I would like to talk to you if you're still here. If we evacuated for Milton to another city, is there any benefit being given out? If you have any lodging expenses and you answer that yes when you fill out the application, obviously you have lodging expenses related to the hurricane. So you might be eligible for lodging assistance. Again, it's a personal question. I will have to check in your case and make sure that if you already sent those receipts, they are in your file. And if you haven't sent those receipts, then you need to upload them, go to our nearest disaster recovery center, or call or fax them to us at, I'm going to give that fax again, 1-800-827-8112. And if there's any other questions that I haven't read, I haven't.
Or they could upload it to their disaster assistance.gov.
Right, so if they have their app, they can do that. Yes, thanks, James.
If we sign the lease, do we just upload the lease, or do we need any other documents?
After receiving displacement assistance?
I haven't received any displacement assistance. saying I'm homeless, I don't have a home, I have to sign a lease somewhere else. Do I just submit that paperwork, or is there anything additional that we need to submit?
I'll talk to you when we're done, because I want to make sure I'm looking at this. But yes, you can upload the lease if you have it. That's fine.
I have lodging assistance approved. I didn't even take it because I didn't need it right now. Is it deferrable to when I do, which would be like in December?
So I have to look at your case to see until what date your window is open, just to make sure that by December, that window is still open for TSA.
And then $750 was, the emergency money for Helene, $770 because of the increase on October 1st for Milton. Is that something that everyone should be eligible for because there were 2 back-to-back disasters? I frankly got only $300 with Milton, and I have no idea why.
So not everybody is eligible for the
But I
seven.
was for the first. I'm still homeless. I was for the first. I don't understand how they're doing that.
The 300 is the cleaning
Hold on.
sanitizer assistance.
Can you use this so people can, and repeat the questions?
Please repeat the question, but I'm sure I'm not the only one, and don't understand it's $26.60 just out of the blue, and that's nice and everything, but we have no idea, so
Yeah,
just
so-
have some explanation.
This is James.
Oh.
He's the other side of my brain.
So, in the system there, when you first got the inspection for it, okay, so when you first got the inspection, basically, if you have this home is safe to occupy, that's what the FEMA inspector says. There's a clean and sanitize assistance, and that is the $300 that you mentioned. So,
It's not safe to occupy.
you would go, once you get to that part, there's an appeal process. So we would have to actually look at your file to get some more information. But going back to your previous question about the 750 versus 770 for this other disaster, you have to have occupancy verified in the system. So a lot of times, if they never got a second inspection for Milton, FEMA doesn't automatically know that the occupancy has been verified for Helene. It should have automatically populated, but I just saw a case right now that it didn't automatically populate for occupancy verified.
You mean not, that no one's living there, it's uninhabitable right now. It was after the
No,
wind, and it still is.
No, I'm talking about just the evacuation assistance for serious needs assistance for the 770. So if you got the 770 on the first one,
750, yeah.
750. On the second one, you have to have occupancy verified. And if you had an inspection on the first one, that's why FEMA knows that the occupancy is verified. Should have automatically populated. I'm seeing cases where it's not. Yeah, so we need to work on that, upload some utility bills or documents into your file. Once FEMA has the occupancy verified, then they should be able to issue out the second part. But as long as you answered the questions is essential needs, food, water, gas, medication, personal hygiene items, infant toddler items. It's a financial thing, but it's essential needs in the system, and then it comes out as serious needs.
I was just curious why it was.
Yeah, but we definitely have to look at your case, because what you're describing is that the inspector said a certain thing, and that's when you got the $300. Go ahead. Go ahead.
If we don't have in this moment electricity, we have some benefits for us. We lost the house, then we moved to other house in order to do business. And in the new house, we don't have electricity.
And the new rental that she got.
I'm gonna look at your file and being able to determine exactly what's going on. Yeah, I just don't wanna specifically say anything because I don't know what is holding you up.
Ladies and gentlemen, looking at the time, it's about 7:20 right now. We have a meeting scheduled to go until 7:30. So what I'd like to do is seize the question and answer portion and allow people to come up and talk individually if you have questions or follow-up questions.
We're setting up in the other room over there. Yeah, and you can
We don't need
So I think you are the person that.
I don't have to answer all your questions. I know you had a lot of questions for me, and your case is particularly complex. And I talked to FEMA today, and they're going to give me some advice on how to but as far as the balance, what I would is that
Oh, this is a particular case. This is a complicated one.
Now,